Gagne's last name is misspelled. It's G-A-G-N-E.
Okay, no problem. Any other corrections or additions?
The only problem is, Howard, almost like to have the minutes separated because I wasn't at the October 5th meeting.
Oh, they're on the same.
And they're on the same resolution.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, well, why don't we do that then? Why don't we,
Vote the 14th first and the October's.
let's see.
Well, I
Do
can
that.
just make a notation. It doesn't make any difference. But I can't vote on the
Okay,
October.
yeah, just make a notation
All
of
right,
that.
that's
then,
what I'll
Jim.
do. That's fine.
Okay. Any other corrections or additions? Why we poll the council?
Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Counselor Ridgeway?
I, on the September 14th minutes, abstain on the October 5th because I was not at the meeting.
Okay. Counselor Smart?
Aye.
Counselor Warner?
Aye on the September 14th minutes and abstain on the October 5th meeting because I was not present.
Supervisor Rose?
Aye. Next resolution, 95-114, payment of bills, move the vouchers 291 through 321, general fund, in the amount of $10,845.23, and vouchers 221 through 240, highway fund, in the amount of $9,030.30, having been approved. The supervisor will be allowed to pay them from designated accounts. Would someone like to move that?
So moved.
Second it.
Barbie, poll the council.
Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Counselor Ridgeway?
Aye.
Counselor Smart?
Aye.
Counselor Warner?
Aye.
Supervisor Rose?
Aye. Okay, we'll move on to communications. I have a few pieces of communication here. One, at last month's meeting, I mentioned that the Neighborhood-Based Alliance had a program called Pride in Community where they were accepting proposals for different projects from municipalities where they would fund the labor portion of that project. And we submitted a proposal for a pavilion for the town park, which we're going to be paying the cost of the lumber, materials, and so on to construct it with. They're going to supply the labor at no charge to us. And the letter reads, "Thank you for submitting proposals for the Pride in Community project. We are pleased to inform you that your proposals have been approved. We will call to schedule your project soon. We will need to know who the project contact person is so that the crew leader can contact him or her with questions or concerns." Now, it mentions more than one proposal here. I submitted 2 other proposals at the last minute, trying to get it in the door so that if this board does appropriate any money next year for these projects, we may be able to carry those out too. Those projects included remodeling the upstairs of this town hall where there's a mezzanine, but there's no windows or access to the outside of the building from up there. So it would entail hiring an architect to come in and do a study, tell us what needs to be done to remodel that, what the cost would be, and design a plan for that. I'm not sure if the funding will be approved for that particular project. It hasn't yet, but I applied for that. Also, I applied for another project to put a deck along the back of the town hall. We have 2 exit doors here that just kind of drop off onto the ground about 1.5 feet or so. And it'd be nice to have a deck along the back that we could use for, leaving the building, or the seniors could have luncheons there in the summer, or whatever purpose, recreational purposes maybe. Again, this would be no cost to the town. We just supply the materials, they supply the labor. So we did get the one approval, and we'll be starting that real soon. I received another letter.
What about the other 2? We just haven't heard on those, or?
I haven't gotten the plans together. I have to meet with them, present the plans, and then they have to approve it. So we've only got approval on the pavilion at the park right now, because we already had the money for the project to start that one. The other projects are pending on the budget for next year, whether or not the board wants to approve any additional monies for them or whatever. It'd be too bad if we couldn't take advantage of the free labor if we're going to be doing these at all. The other letter I received was, "Dear Town Board members, my name is Jessica Rose Allen. I am 7 years old. I live on Shalone Drive. My school bus travels on Route 57. The speed limit near my house is 55. We have a lot of problems with traffic passing my stopped school bus when the red lights are flashing. Please help me and the other kids. The speed limit should be 35 like the rest of Route 57. Thank you, Jessica Rose Allen." I don't ever remember getting a letter from a 7-year-old for changing the speed limit, but I suppose it's as valid as anyone else's. So I'll check into it to be sure, though, and if that's the case, maybe we should look into lowering that speed limit in that area. It is 35 all the way until you get to where Kingdom Road is, I believe, near there. and then it becomes 55 from there to 481, and it's still the same residential area as the rest of the road, so I think that warrants looking into. I received another letter from Rose Allen. She wants the board to know how impressed she is that the dog control officer responded in only 2 hours on Sunday to her call. She appreciates it very much, and we appreciate it too, Jerry. You've been doing an outstanding job the last 2 years here, and we thank you for that. Okay, that's all the communications I have. Committee reports, code enforcement, Cindy?
Okay, in September, 12 permits were issued, 2 for homes, 2 for mobile homes, 2 accessory buildings, 2 garages, 1 farm building, 2 commercial structures, and 1 permit for repair work. 2 certificates of occupancy were issued, 2 certificates of compliance, 3 conditional certificates of occupancy, 26 construction inspections were performed, 7 fire safety inspections, and 5 complaint follow-ups. Just a note on the 2 commercial buildings, one is a mini storage that Eddie Bellinger's putting in on his property, and the other commercial building was a joint news center that Niagara Mohawk and the New York Power Authority are putting out at the airport site. It's a required facility for their emergency plan, and it is basically what it says, a joint news center. It's where all the news media would gather in case of an emergency, and they'd be briefed on what was happening at the plant, at either one of the nuclear plants if they had any problems. So the only other thing that I wanted to talk about was there have been some questions from people in the community and concern about the project of soil remediation going on at the old Doty Oil site. The site is currently owned by Parrish Fuel Energy Corporation out of Parrish, and they have DEC permits to perform the soil remediation project that they're doing there. Unfortunately, they didn't approach the town until they were ready to go with the project, and the zoning for that area is residential. Now, everybody knows that Route 3 is a pretty mixed up area as far as our zoning goes. We've got everything in there from residential, agricultural, commercial. We've got a school right next door. So, but it has been zoned a residential area. And because of that, and because this type of procedure that they're doing was something that I didn't feel was really addressed in our zoning ordinance per se, I discussed it with the town attorney, and he felt that we should issue a stop work order on the site, and that was done. Parrish Energy has been very, very cooperative. They did immediately stop work. They did not do anything else there, and that seems to have caused another problem. The neighbors have been concerned that there might be runoff from the area, and they were afraid that that might be contaminated runoff. And they said there was some dust blowing around. I believe they've called and talked to Mrs. Austin, our ZBA chairman. And I was able to contact the DEC engineer in charge of the project, and the dirt that is on the front of the site is not contaminated soil. It is simply bedding sand that was brought in there for the project. So that came from Northern down the road. So that soil, if it's running anywhere, it's the same dirt that's down at Northern's yard. So you shouldn't need to be concerned about that. The soil that was brought in that is in the cell, which is the soil remediation cell, has a collection system underneath it to collect all the water that could get into that soil. And if they were allowed to finish the project, they would have covered that soil up. After talking to the DEC engineer, I felt that it was probably in the best interest of the town and the neighbors and the company for them to at least finish the portion of the project that they were working on. So they intend to go back out there and cover up the cell that does have contaminated soil in it, and they'll probably be removing the pile of sand, although it really poses no hazard. They probably can use it elsewhere. Also, I've instructed Parrish Energy Fuels to appear for their public hearing, which they did request in October, and then they asked that it be canceled. And Mr. Carr, the town attorney, felt that that the town should proceed with the public hearing as soon as possible. And since Parish Energy did ask for it, we've asked them to appear in November at the ZBA meeting. Also, the consultants that are involved were very cooperative and said they would be happy to meet with neighbors, show them how the system works, and the reality is if that soil sits there for another month or two, it'll probably be tested at levels where they can take it out and dump it anywhere they want. So the process is already, it's there, it's ongoing, and it works evidently, and the DEC engineer said this company was very good with their testing, called them all the time, even when the results were negative and they didn't need to call, they were very good about keeping in touch with them. So I think that, I don't think that there's anything there right now that's really posing any danger to anyone, but it's better for them to cover it up and finish the work that they were doing. And then, you know, it'll be up to the ZBA to decide whether or not they think this is a reasonable use of that land. The Doty oil site is probably contaminated with the same type of soils that were brought there. And the DEC will probably order that that site be cleaned, and if they do, they will do exactly the same kind of thing that they're doing right now, only it will actually be soil that they dig up from that site. And at that point, our zoning will not be able to touch it. If they get an order to do that, that's a state order that we cannot stop. So just for community information, that's what's been going on, and I think that hopefully if we have a public hearing and Parish Energy Fuels and the people from the consultant are here to explain the process, it'll put people's fears to bed, I hope, and hopefully some resolution can be reached. If they did not treat the soil this way, they would have to put it in the landfill. Not only does it cost the company 4 or 5 times as much to put it in the landfill, but then it's going to be filling up the landfill with soil which could be treated and then reused instead of filling it up. So I think there's a benefit to treating it. And again, any questions people have, I think, you know, they can direct to the consultant. Their name is Certified Environmental Services.
And where are they bringing the soil from?
The soil that was brought there was from the site on 481 in the city of Fulton.
Where Austin's garage used to be?
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
If that's what it's called, yeah.
Oh,
It was a
it was.
Sunoco station.
Yeah, Parish Oil
Don
bought it.
Pitcher was there the last I knew, and I don't know before who the owners were. That's where the soil in the cell came from. And they know that they cannot bring any more. They will cover what's there, but they won't be bringing any more out unless they're given permission to do so.
Just to clarify what you said again, when you say proceed, let them proceed, you mean to proceed to button up, not to bring
Right,
anything else in
right.
and
That's
continue with
right.
the operation,
And-
just to
and-
clean up what they started.
Right,
and-
to
and make
finish
sure it's
off
contained.
the portion of the job that they had almost completed. They had the cell all constructed. I'm quite certain they don't bring the soil out there until the cell is constructed with the 2 layers of plastic and the drainage system that it has to be supplied with. They aren't allowed to bring it out there and just put it in a pile like the sand on the front of the lot. As I said, that sand is, they called it bedding sand. It's mixed in with the soil, I think, after it's brought on site and then placed in the cell. So they have, my letter's pretty specific that they're not supposed to bring out any more soil, and I don't think there'll be any problem with that. The work they're supposed to do, they said, should only take a day or 2. Okay?
Thank you, Cindy. Okay, dog control, Jerry?
Received 82 calls and complaints, adopted out 2 dogs, 1 dog is redeemed, picked up 6 dogs this month, 3 dogs are still at the kennel, 3 dogs were lost, and 3 dog bites. Traveling about 700 miles on the routes. And for the repairs, we mowed the lawn and cleaned out the rain gutters. And I'd like to thank Agway, they donated some shrubs around the sign out front. And for the winter repairs, we just got to close up the outside run. And I'm in need of anybody's got dog houses and they're not using it, or we send some dogs to Wilcott there, they help us adopt them out. They need some dog houses, if anybody's got an empty one they're not using, we could use them there. big or small, need 4 or 5 if possible.
Thank you. Recreation, Sue?
16 children attended the roller skating party on September 24th, and last Monday on October 9th, 53 children and adults attended the trip to Godfrey's for the hayride and visit to the pumpkin patch. We got a very nice compliment from Mrs. Godfrey. She said our group was very well behaved and we're welcome out there anytime we want to come. She said we have a really nice group, so I think that's a very nice compliment to hear. Upcoming events are on Saturday, November 4th. We have bowling at Lakeview Lanes. They'll be able to bowl 2 free games, and that begins at 1 o'clock. And Sunday, November 12th, we have a trip to see the Syracuse Crunch hockey team. That's a Sunday. The game is at 5 p.m. and the bus will leave at 3:45. I do ask that if anybody would like to attend this, that they sign up before October 31st. And they have to definitely know they are going. They can't sign up and then decide not to go, because I have to give the Crunch a definite number, and whatever number I give them, that's the number of tickets I have to pay for. So I don't want to have to pay for tickets that are not used. So I do ask that people sign up, and also that chaperones sign up also, so I can count them for tickets. And also I'd like to add that I had a voicemail installed for the recreation department to use. I had a lot of phone calls coming to my home at different times of the day, at night, in the morning. And I think this will be a good way for people to find out what events are taking place. If they do not receive a flyer, they can call voicemail and find out what's going on in the future. And if they need to contact me, they can leave a message, and I'll get back to them as soon as possible.
Thank you. Planning Board, Evan?
Planning Board held its October meeting on Wednesday, October 11th. One member was absent, Gary Richardson. All the other members were present. 2 public hearings were held. The first was in regards to a request by Mr. Jay Ledden for approval of a new subdivision request to develop property he owns on the Baldwin Road. This 6-lot subdivision is called the Baldwin Heights subdivision. He had previously been before the board with a 7-lot subdivision request for the same parcel. That previous request was denied. This request would be considered less intensive. The public hearing was adjourned but not closed. It will be continued at our November meeting. The second public hearing involved a request by the Wide Waters Group for subdivision approval to split a parcel from the undeveloped portion of the shopping plaza parcel. This is located on the west side of the entranceway. This is largely for financing reasons, and would probably be a step in their efforts to lease an out parcel at some point in the future. They had no idea or no specific plans at the meeting last night. After discussion, the request was approved. During this discussion, it was brought out that it is their intentions to have the rear entrance work completed before winter. The board also had business with the Seneca Hill Medical Complex. After a review of progress to date, the board made a conditional negative declaration for seeker. This means that the board does not see any significant negative environmental impact relating to this project as it is presently planned. Where there was an impact, the board feels their mitigation efforts are satisfactory. They plan to come before us next month for site plan approval, and we're anticipating a public hearing at our November meeting regarding this. Wastewater treatment is proposed to be handled by the Minetto Treatment Plant, and an extensive recreation trail is planned. Their proposed plans for handling water should result in hopefully a significant improvement for the users of the Seneca Hill Water District. That hasn't been, I don't think that plan has been totally finalized yet, but either way, it seems like Seneca Hill will hopefully benefit from that, and I believe the town board will be involved in the final decision on that. Discussions between the town and developers should take place involving the size of the pipe that would be crossing the Oswego River. I just wanted to mention that if they're going to be running a pipe to the Minetto Treatment Plant, we might want to become involved in the sizing of that pipe. Obviously, their plans would be to make the pipe sufficiently large enough to handle their complex. If there's any thought by the board that possibly at some point in the future there may be some improvement to this for the people on the east side of the river, then we might want to work with the developer to ensure that the pipeline going across the river is of sufficient size to possibly handle any further intake in the future. And this would be the time to possibly discuss that with them. The board also approved several single subdivision applications. One was for Norm Ellis for property he owns on the Howard Road. One was for Mr. Arthur Dumont for property he owns on the Mount Pleasant Road. And one for Mr., I think it was Leslie Kerfine Sr. for property he owns on the Silk Road. The board also reviewed 2 zone change requests. One was by the Spataro family for property located on the north side of the Owens Road between the 481 crossover and the Conrail tracks. They've been discussing this for a while now. In reviewing their paperwork before the meeting last night, the specific properties involved have not been totally cleared up. So that's got to be worked on just a little bit, but we're anticipating getting this to the county for review for their November meeting and then approaching you with our recommendation. The second one was the request by Penny Eason for a zone change for property she is hoping to develop on the intersection of County Route 45 and Route 481. As the board knows, this application has been pending for quite a while. Her original request involved only her parcel, and it was denied for several reasons. She requested resubmission, and the board reconsidered the application in light of the hospital project that would be basically across the street. This time, the board recommended rezoning a considerably larger parcel, a parcel of a little over 30 acres that runs along the roadway in front of the hospital and her property from approximately the location of Penny's parcel on the east side to just past, there's a lounge or a bar located just to the west of the proposed hospital property. So we're looking, it was suggested that that stretch between hers and theirs be looked upon for rezoning to a commercial designation. This resolution was passed and submitted to the town board, which at the time rightly questioned whether this crossed the threshold as a type 1 action, which it did. A long seeker form has been completed and submitted to me, which we will be reviewing. The applicant is under severe time constraints and may lose option on the property if the town does not act. I guess they're beginning to see what's happening across from her with the hospital, and they're putting pressure on her. We as a board will continue the seeker review. She's been in touch with Cord Spencer with the Seneca Hill Medical Campus Group, who does not seem to object to what she's trying to do at all. She asked that I request tonight that the town board consider proceeding with scheduling a public hearing on this request as soon as possible. And then we as a planning board will also continue the seeker review and send the material out to the concerned parties. This can be done together. It doesn't have to be done one after the other. At this point, we're anticipating scheduling our November meeting for Wednesday, November 8th. Now that would be the second Wednesday of the month. Normally we meet on the first Wednesday of the month, but I'm having a lot of difficulty. We're having a couple attorneys at the meeting and making sure that we can get a schedule that accommodates not only their schedule, but the schedule of the other board members as well. Either way, I will be putting a notification in the paper and on the calendar, but we're looking at November 8th. So anybody who has any strong interest regarding the Seneca Hill project, I strongly suggest you come to that meeting. I don't think NBC will be scheduling any important interviews for that night. I was afraid we'd have nobody at our meeting last night, but it turned out we had some people here anyway. And if you're, anybody who lives near the Baldwin Heights subdivision who has any requests, I strongly suggest that you make it a point to make it to that meeting on November 8th. Thank you very much.
Zoning?
There's a public hearing scheduled for September 25th for David Satchel, and that was for a 20-foot rear yard variance, and that was approved. There was no objections or anyone at the meeting, so that was approved. In addition to that, same evening there was an application by Earth Tech Environmental Consultants for a 10-foot side yard variance for the purpose of constructing a building to house the groundwater soil recovery treatment system on the Miller Brewery property. Again, there was no objections. This was just for the construction of the building. Hearing no objections and seeing that cleanup was mandated by the New York State DEC, the board approved the project, and it was also understood that the DEC will complete the seeker process for application. So there is still time for citizen input if anyone has concerns about that application. And I did receive a couple calls on that, and I spoke directly to some people in Fulton that were concerned, and primarily Sandy Weston, and I told her that we had nothing to do with the secret process, that would be handled by the DEC, and that there was still time for input because they had a timeline that they had to accommodate to. There was also an application submitted by VIP Structures requesting a public hearing for an area variance to expand a commercial building located on the Great Bear Road, owned by Owens, Illinois. However, this information had to be sent to the county. We sent it to the adjacent town, and we needed to send it to the county, so we decided to table that until our regular meeting in November. So that was just for those special public hearings, and we did that to accommodate Mr. Satchel because he needed to get his building put up. We also had our regular meeting on October 9th, and we had a public hearing scheduled for Parish Oil Company, as Cindy elaborated on tonight, for the purpose of treating the contaminated soil and the gas from different gas stations in the area. And the zoning board had some public input at that meeting, and they were quite concerned that something should be done immediately because they did not get back to us about rescheduling the hearing, and we were concerned that they were going to just put this off, and we didn't know what the effects was going to be down there. And the area is zone residential, and it's in kind of commercial use, it's not allowed, so therefore they need our approval. But the citizens who attended the meeting were very concerned with the sand blowing around, but they thought it was soil. And I'm glad that Cindy cleared that up tonight, that it's not contaminated soil blowing around. And the board also issued, let me see, they decided to go through the property and the application, and since the stop work order was issued by the building inspector, there was concern that the surface runoff may be harmful to the area. So the zoning board voted unanimously to strongly encourage the town board to take action in order to protect the neighbors in the immediate vicinity and insist that a public hearing be held in November. Since the Parish Oil Company has already requested the hearing in September, November gives them ample time to present their case to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And I received a letter from Cindy tonight telling me that she did contact someone from Parish Oil Company. She sent them a letter and saying that it is understood that the Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on November 8th, and that the fee of $65 should be paid to the town clerk. So I thank Cindy for taking the initiative to do something about this, and I'm sorry that they decided to cancel the hearing. I know a lot of people were interested, and they just think November could be too late. So I guess the motion has been accepted by the zoning board, and you people have acted on it, and we thank you. So we'll have our meeting then.
Marie, you say you had a meeting scheduled for Parish Oil. Was that an advertised meeting?
Yeah, it wasn't advertised. We were going to have a public hearing. We voted on it, and they were supposed to come in and pay the fee. They never come in and pay the fee, so therefore we didn't hold a public hearing.
So it wasn't even advertised then?
No.
Okay, you had a meeting, but there wasn't...
Well, it was at our regular meeting. They were supposed to have it that night at our regular meeting. The public hearing was before that. And I told the people that were there that it was canceled. People came here understanding
Thinking there was going to be
right,
one, but it was
right.
never advertised as one because they never paid the fee, never followed through with it.
Right.
Okay.
But they were at the meeting previously, and they heard us say that we made a motion that it would be next month before the meeting. That's why they were in attendance, and then they never come in and paid the fee, so therefore we had to cancel. But no, we did not advertise. But the board felt that they did want to continue and hold the meeting in November, seeing that we've already approved it, and all I need is the okay from the town board to go ahead and publish this and hold a public hearing, and hopefully Parish Oil will show up.
I don't think you need our approval. If they pay the fee, then you can just go ahead and schedule
What if
it.
they don't pay the fee? What do you want me to do?
Well, then you don't schedule it. I mean, you don't even announce it until they pay the fee, then you have to announce it.
Cindy just told me differently.
Yeah, Howard, Ron Carr said he felt we should hold the public hearing anyway, and since the...
So it wouldn't be a zoning board public hearing, it'd be a town board public hearing if we
Yeah, the
authorize
town
it.
board is really going to have to pay for it. The town is going to end up paying for it, but he said he felt we should hold the public hearing irregardless of whether they pay a fee. He said most towns, the reality is most people when they request a public hearing, apply with a fee attached. We tend to be a little bit more lax about that, and when people come before us and ask for a public hearing, we say yes, and you need to pay the fee by a certain date so it can be advertised. But we do have an application from them requesting a public hearing, requesting an interpretation of the zoning for this use. And when I spoke to Ron about it, he said he felt that it was reasonable for them to ask for a 1-month delay, which is really what they did. They did talk to me and say, we need to get our act together and figure out exactly what we're going to do. You know, we weren't aware that this was in a residential zone, and we need to decide whether or not we want to try to proceed, what we're going to do. But he said he felt that a 1-month delay was reasonable on their part. Beyond that, probably was not reasonable, that we should just go ahead and hold the public hearing, and, you know, that'll be something the town board will have to decide. Are they going to take the public hearing fee out of the zoning board's budget, out of your, whatever, you know,
our budget.
That will be, I guess, up to the town board.
But it would be a zoning board public hearing, correct? You would conduct a public hearing.
Yeah, the zoning board will be conducting the public
And
hearing.
that's what her letter states right here, Howard. It
Right.
says, "The zoning board of appeals will hold a public hearing on this issue November 8th. The fee of $65 should be paid." That's how she addressed
Right.
it in her letter. So I assume that we can go on with this based on the fact that she did send the letter to them.
I doubt you're going to, I imagine they're going to pay the fee anyway. They've received this letter in writing. We've asked them to and told them we're going to hold it, so.
Okay, and that date is okay with your board?
That's our regular monthly meeting, is that
All
right?
right, you're talking about November 8th? November 8th, you're going to get into our bill signing. The planning board's got a meeting.
That's right.
But that's our regular monthly meeting, Jeff.
They're having a meeting anyway, though.
That's,
They already got
don't
one
you
set.
meet on Tuesday, Jess, instead
It's
of?
election day.
Election day,
Oh,
so
that's
we have to
right. Oh,
postpone
yeah,
it.
November's an awful month. Everything's messed up there.
Actually, there's no reason why we couldn't have our work session Monday if we had to, just to avoid the conflict of 3 or 4 meetings going on in here. But we'll talk about that towards the
Well,
end
we
of the
don't
meeting.
usually meet in here. for the
No, we don't meet in here anyway. We meet in the other room, so. Okay, thank you. Historian Fern?
Since our last board meeting, I have acquired the old candy cabinet that I talked about before, and it's sat in the store at Mount Pleasant. You know, George Peckham's and Claude Ballard's and Ivan and I and our daughter sold a lot of penny candy and gum out of this candy, out of the cabinet over the years. It's going to take a little bit of work to get it back into good condition, but I've started on it, and I hope I can con some cabinet maker into helping me a little bit with that. And I talked, I believe, last meeting that I had the Duncan McDougall family tree, and it dates back to the early 1700s. And I brought it to the meeting with me tonight, if anyone's interested in seeing that. It's quite interesting.
Highway, Barb, do you have a report for Doug?
3 days road repair, 10 days mowing roadsides, 10 days machinery repair, 4 days repairing and putting up signs, 2 days putting in driveways, 8 days cutting brush and trees, 7 days hauling ice control. The wages for September 1995 was $18,473.10. Machinery repair and supplies, $9,030.30. September 1995 total expenditures, $27,503.40, and that's submitted by Bob Kerfeed.
Thank you, Barb. Okay, old business. I have one piece of old business. We had a petition a couple months ago concerning the railroad tracks on Owens Road, and we received notice from Conrail recently that they're going to cold pack around the tracks on the Owens Road for this winter, but in the spring they plan to take the tracks out and replace them, so that'll be a welcome thing. I'm sure the highway department would like that, and all the residents in that area and the people that travel that road. So, okay, resolutions and discussion. We have one resolution on the agenda tonight, 95-115, relocation of Mud Lake Road. I'm going to read the resolution first, and then the board's going to discuss it. Mr. Eby is here tonight, who's representing the client that this involves, and we'll probably have some questions for him before we vote on it. Whereas the town of Volney has constructed and maintained the Mud Lake Road in the town of Volney And whereas in 1968, the town modified the location of said Mud Lake Road and relocated the roadbed, and whereas as a result of the relocation of the highway, the former roadbed has been abandoned, and whereas the town has no use for the abandoned roadbed, and whereas there is a portion of the abandoned roadbed lying between the new roadbed and the abutting property owned by Sterling Holliday and Clara Holliday, described as Town of Volney, County of Oswego, State of New York, being part of Lot 1 and bounded on the north by the north line of Holliday property, extended and bounded on the west by the relocated Mud Lake Road, and bounded on the east by the east line of the former Mud Lake Road, being a triangular parcel of land including the roadbed of the former Mud Lake Road and the lands between the former Mud Lake Road and the relocated Mud Lake Road. Whereas the Oswego County Highway Superintendent has consented to abandoning and conveying the aforedescribed property to the abutting owners, Sterling and Clara Holliday. And whereas the Town of Volney Highway Superintendent has recommended abandoning and conveying said property unto the abutting owners, Sterling and Clara Holliday. And whereas the requirements of New York State Highway Law, Section 212, have been met, now therefore be it resolved that, 1, the Town of Volney abandon the aforedescribed premises unto the abutting landowners, to wit, Sterling and Clara Holliday. 2, the Volney Town Supervisor be and hereby is authorized to execute and acknowledge the name of the town to a quitclaim deed on deeds of the land so abandoned, and to deliver the same to the abutting owners, Sterling and Clara Holliday, forthwith. 3, this resolution shall constitute an immediate abandonment of the aforedescribed premises. I'll move the resolution. Would someone like to second it for discussion?
Second for discussion.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Evie?
Yes, one question that I would have that we've been talking about is, are Sterling and Clara Holliday the only owners of the contiguous properties?
Well, we, I think the part of your package was a tax map there. They, I'm not sure which is north, but they own the property that was bounded by the old Mud Lake Road. You know, so what we're interested in is if you deed the old roadbed property, whatever the interest the town had in it, over to them. They've got a purchase offer on their property, and the title company didn't want to leave this abandoned roadbed just hanging there. They wanted it cleared up, so they asked me to get the resolution from the town, conveying to the Hollidays. They own this piece of property over here, which was bounded by the old Mud Lake Road.
By the old Mud Lake Road. And then, but the people, do they own this property right here?
No, they don't own that. This was theirs over here.
So in actuality, some of these people might also have a claim to that property?
Well, we're saying that Hollidays are the owners, the abutting owners to the old Mud Lake Road. So that's, you know, that's really the only thing the town has an interest in is the roadbed there, and that's what we're interested in. We understand the town can't convey any title to anything that they didn't own, and that's what this is concerned with. The deed is a quitclaim deed, which means you quit whatever interest you have in it. If you don't have any interest in it, you can't convey any interest in it. So, I don't know if that answers your question. I don't have a survey of this in here. This is what I got from the tax authorities.
So in actuality, what this does is this relieves the town of all rights and interests and responsibility for that piece of property,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. And in the old road.
And the old roadbed, that's correct, yeah.
Any other questions from the board? Well, I spoke to our attorney about this also, Mr. Evie. He pretty much said the same thing. It's just a quick claim type thing that just resolves us of any purpose for that land. And it's not saying that anyone else owns it or anything. It's just saying that we don't have any interest in it, basically. And I'm satisfied with that if the rest of the board is. So I'll move the motion.
It was moved and seconded.
Oh, that's right.
We already did.
Okay. Any other discussion from the board on this?
No, but I think we ought to, if we're going to abandon one part of it, I think we ought to get into abandoning the rest of it also. then we got no interest in the whole road at all. We don't use it.
Yeah, we could do that.
We
but-
could start with this here, but I think we ought to look into abandoning the rest of it. Then that will relieve us of all responsibility of the old road bed.
Is there more to it than what's shown on this map?
Well, they're just asking for the triangular piece. You got the rest of the old road bed from here down.
Okay, that's something we could deal with in another meeting, I guess. Go ahead, Kevin.
Is that road bed, does that intersect the Mud Lake Road that's existing now? Okay, now, we approved, did we approve a gravel bed?
You approved a gravel bed back in there, yes.
the old road.
Okay, so I just want to make sure the board is aware. I believe that there's a gravel mining operation that was approved last year that, and they were traveling the old road bed to get to the gravel mine operation in the back. I believe if this abuts and runs into Mud Lake Road. I think that's what they were planning on using for access to where this gravel.
Well, what we're doing is just, is basically relinquishing any rights the town has to that old road bed.
Just,
So
I
we
think
don't
you
have,
should be aware
we
that I
don't have the
believe that there was-
responsibility of maintaining it.
Yeah, okay, just so you're aware, I believe there's a we approved one last summer out there, and I think the roadbed was the means that they were gonna utilize, the developer was gonna utilize to get to the, operation in the back.
You know, and he was coming in on, Kevin? Did you take a look, have you seen this?
I just took a
You
glance
know
at
what parcel that mine was, you know what parcel that mine was on?
Right, I think as part of the resolution, they said that they would not be bringing their trucks into the town. They were coming from Scriba area,
Oh, New Haven,
or New Haven, that's what.
so they can handle.
Any questions or comments from the public on this resolution? Something in the hall's more interesting. Okay. Barbie, poll the council, please.
Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Counselor Ridgway?
Aye.
Counselor Smart?
Aye.
Counselor Warner?
Aye.
Supervisor Rose?
Aye. Resolution 95-116, advertised for the position Board of Review. Move to authorize the town clerk to advertise for the opening of a position on the Assessment Board of Review, term to expire 9/30/2000. I'll move it.
Second.
Any discussion from the board on it?
Whose term is it? I don't have my sheet.
Actually, I think
Tom
Mike...
Venezia, I think it is.
Oh, is it Tom's?
I think so. Barb, Tom Venezia.
It's Tom
Oh,
Venezia,
okay. There's another open too, though, isn't there, Barb? Because Mike didn't finish out his term.
Oh, we filled that.
Mike already did. I mean, he already said he was going to be again.
Yeah, he was already
He was
reappointed
appointed
last year.
last year.
Right, but he didn't perform any duties this year. He didn't make the grievance meetings or anything, so by virtue of that, I don't know if he can continue for another year, or do we need to reappoint?
He'd have to resign.
But, okay, have you heard anything from him? Is he going to continue for sure? even though
He's
he-
going, yes, he called me and said now his workload is a little lighter. He is going to, he asked me when the next class was going to be, which was going, you know, I talked to Oswego, and they're going to let him know when it is, and he's going to take the next class, so
Okay.
he'll be okay to do it.
Okay. You may be wondering why we're going to advertise for a position that was open September 30th, and I don't know why, but for some reason this seems to keep getting overlooked every year, and we always do it late because all the other appointments are made in January, and this is the only one that's made this time of year. It doesn't take place until next tax season anyway, but still we're supposed to make the appointment by the 30th of September. So, let's see, who seconded that now?
I did.
You did? Okay, any other discussion from the board on this one? Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, Barbie, poll council.
Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Counselor Ridgway?
Aye.
Counselor Smart?
Aye.
Counselor Warner?
Aye.
Supervisor Rose?
Aye. Okay, there's a few more resolutions, two that have come up tonight, and one that I came up with since Tuesday night. And I'll start with the one that I've
There's
We still got one more here, Howard,
Oh,
for
is there
17.
one there? Oh, I'm sorry. You're right, one more here. Okay, 95-117, appointment of code enforcement officer.
I would move to appoint Dan Russo, Code Enforcement Officer, Building Inspector, finished term vacated by the current Code Enforcement Officer, Cindy Talbert, term to expire 12/31/95.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion from the board? Questions or comments from the public on this resolution? Marie?
I would just like to say, as a zoning board chairman, I've worked with Dan in the past, and I think that he was a workable guy, and he did a fine job, and I think that, I don't know how many applicants that you had, I know there were several.
5.
And, but I think that Dan would be a good person to put back in, because he has had the position before, and I know it was Bill Wade that come to me personally and said that when Dan did have the job, he did do a good job when he was in there. He told Kevin and I that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Barbie, poll the council.
Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Counselor Ridgway?
Aye.
Counselor Smart?
Aye.
Counselor Warner?
Aye.
Supervisor Rose?
Aye. Okay. Tuesday evening, we met with the highway workers over a contract for them for next year as part of our budget workshop. And it was brought to our attention actually a year ago by Merlin Doty, a concern he had about beepers for the highwaymen, because when they need to be called, the only thing they have is their home phones. And if someone's on that home phone, tying it up for whatever reason, the highway superintendent can't get through to the highwaymen to call them in for snow plow removal or whatever. Also, it's difficult for them to go anywhere because they're on call 24 hours a day, I believe you said, Merlin. So that means if they want to go into the grocery store or anything like that, they got to hurry right back because if the phone rings and they have to go out on detail. You know, it doesn't make for a very efficient operation of the highway department without a beeper that they can take with them so they're not tied to their telephone at home. And we checked on whether or not we as a town board can authorize that on our own. And it appears that we can. So for that reason, I feel it's important, in light of what Merlin told us the other night, that these highwaymen deserve a beeper that they can keep with them at all times so that they don't have to worry about staying at home. They can go where they wish like everyone else can and be available when they're needed. So I'm going to make a motion that we authorize Bob Kerfine. Actually, I wouldn't say the word authorize, I would say mandate, because I think it's important that you have these, that you have beepers. All the highwaymen have beepers. I believe there's 8 highway workers? 9? Okay. So it's just for the winter months that you need them for? Okay, okay.
November 1st until April 1st.
Okay, from November 1st through April 1st, that it'd be mandated that the highway workers have a beeper with them at all times that will come out of the highway funds. And that will be a requirement from now on until any other board decides that it's not necessary. Do I have
I'll second it.
any discussion on this issue from the board?
You checked with our attorney and, or someone, and they
No.
said that we could mandate that the highway superintendent spend money from his funds?
Claudia talked to the Association of Towns legal people, and they said that the town board has the power, because other things were discussed the other night too, and among them were the salaries, as to whether or not the town board can set individual salaries. And we cannot set individual salaries for the person, we can set individual salaries for the position.
Category.
In other words, if you want a light machine operator, we can say we're going to pay that person, whoever it may be, $10 an hour, heavy machine operator, $12 an hour, whatever. We have the power to do that, and up till now, we have not done that. We've only set a cap on what the highest paid highway employee can get, and then we budget a personal services dollar amount to cover the cost of labor for the year. And that's the only thing this town board, since I've been in office, has ever done. From there, the highway superintendent has made his own decision on which levels he wants to put what dollar amount to. But we are allowed to do that, Jim.
I checked with Kevin Crawford at the Association of Towns, and he said that the authority for the town board to make these decisions is based on the Taylor Law, and that all things that have any financial nature to them at all, it is the prerogative of the town board to set wages and anything related to working conditions that involves money. The highway superintendent is in charge of supervising, hiring and firing, priorities of work, and discipline. But anything related to insurance, equipment that we supply for each man in particular, like the beeper, their salary, if there was any type of, anything special we're doing about vacations or any other type of benefit that the only way that you can give it involves money, then that is in the realm of the town board because we handle the financial aspects.
Okay. Do you have anything to add to that, Merlin? Anything that we might have missed?
No, other than I said last year that I brought it up, that it was really an inconvenience for them to have to stay home. They know when they go to work there, they're going to have to be made available.
Right.
But it's kind of putting them in a bad position there to tell their wives or their children they can't use the phone from 4:30 at night when they get home till 7 o'clock the next morning.
Especially if you got teenagers.
I'd like
Okay. Any questions or comments from the public on this resolution? Okay, Barbara, poll the council.
Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Counselor Ridgway?
Aye.
Counselor Smart?
Aye.
Warner?
Aye.
Supervisor Rose?
Aye. Okay, one resolution that we failed to put on the agenda the other night is we have to have a public hearing for our budget, which is usually held the meeting after the election, which will be the 9th of November. So I'll make a motion that we have Barb advertise in the paper for our public hearing on our 1996 budget.
I would second.
Any questions or discussion from the board? Questions or comments from the public? Okay, Barb, we poll the council.
Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Counselor Ridgway?
Aye.
Counselor Smart?
Aye.
Counselor Warner?
Aye.
Supervisor Rose?
Aye. Okay, another resolution that's not on the agenda tonight. Public hearing for the Easton property. Permission for the zoning board to hold a public hearing for that.
Kevin, have they got the documents back from the application back from the county yet on that?
Well, there was the original application,
That's the one you're using?
right. I can make all that material available to you.
Wait, I'm sorry, I got these two mixed up. It's the parish oil we need to authorize. You can do that on the Easton property, is that correct?
Yeah,
You did.
yeah, I think, are you talking parish oil now?
You asked us to have a public hearing.
You would schedule a public hearing to make the actual discussion of the zone change. We make a recommendation. We made the recommendation, and it was brought to our attention, like I said, it was rightfully so, that it would cross the border as a type 1 action under seeker. I communicated that to Penny Eason. She just gave me the long form and requested that I ask if the board could consider scheduling the public hearing next month, or as soon as possible. I know it's getting real busy.
I'm wondering if we should do that.
Her options on the property are running out very quickly.
Shouldn't we have a formal request from her, though?
I believe it should come from her. I don't know if we can accept a request from our planning board. So.
Well, she did that. The
Yeah, she did
petition
that
was submitted a
before.
long time ago.
But she needs to,
I think she has to
submitted
resubmit
a
it.
petition with the other parcel included.
No, we were the ones who recommended expanding the size of the zone change. That was our decision. We have the right to do that. We
Right.
felt that, but her application, we still have on file.
But I'm saying, I don't know if you can ask us for a public hearing. I believe it would have to come from her. She would have to petition us for another public hearing because the situation's changed.
Well, she requested reconsideration of her application,
Right.
which we did, and we recommended that the actual area to be rezoned be expanded. Because her single parcel, obviously, there's a spot zoning question that comes into play. And with the hospital and the commercial development that we anticipate in that area, the planning board felt that the proper course of action was to try to, be proactive in this matter and try to get some type of order to the property now. So we recommended, which we had, we modified her request and recommended that the parcel to be rezoned be larger. That's the same thing we did with the Shalom Drive application a few years back. We recommended that a larger piece of property be rezoned.
Right,
And
but
it
I'm
was
saying
submitted
this
to you.
changes, so another public hearing is in order, correct?
Right.
I'm not so sure
We
that...
turned her down the first time. She
Right,
was
I'm not so
turned down
sure
the
you
first
can make that request, Kevin, is what I'm saying. I may be wrong, but I think it has to come from her. I don't think the planning board can request a public hearing of us. is what I'm saying. Okay? So
And
the
doesn't-
board has a
don't,
different opinion than I do.
Well, my only concern is we've jerked her around for so long. We need to bring closure.
I don't know that we've jerked around.
Well,
We did everything that we were asked of.
All right, that's,
When she makes the application to us, doesn't that in essence say, I am requesting a zone change, and then we move the process along, which involves two boards. It involves our board for recommendation.
Has your board finished the process with her yet?
Yes, the only thing that's going on now is, now that we have the long seeker form, we do have to send out, as part of a type 1 action, we do have to send out a letter. But this can be done, you don't have to make your decision, but you can hold the public hearing, and then you have up to 62 days to make a decision. You know what I mean? But this is going to take 30 or 40 days, the type 1 review takes 30 to 45 days, and to wait till that's completed, and then hold a public hearing, and then 62 days.
So we wouldn't, so the information that you came up with would not be available for the public when we had our public hearing?
All the information I have would certainly be available. The only thing we would not have would be responses from, the responses you get as part of this sending out of the package. You send it out to involved parties. I'd have to send it out to the county, I would assume, the Department of Transportation, Soil and Water Conservation Department. Then they have 30 days to comment.
No, but I mean, all of the information relative to the seeker would not be available then at our public hearing for the public to comment on, would it?
Well, I have the long seeker form completed, I can make...
No, I mean the comments back from the other involved.
Yeah, it may be premature to schedule one today is what I think you're saying, right?
Yeah, I just don't know if we would have all the information available for the public hearing.
And also, we're having a public hearing on the budget, which is usually a pretty good-sized public hearing next month. I don't know if we want to get into another, issue at that particular meeting. Maybe we could schedule one in between or something after the budget hearing is done. So I'll check into whether or not we can just go ahead and do it. We're going to be having work sessions on the budget.
I know you got a lot
We can
going on.
schedule a special meeting if we have to approve that, if it's possible to do.
Now, when we get into a zone change like this, it's taking in other people's property. Don't they have to be in favor of the zone change also? So we got to
You
have...
don't have to be, no, we can recommend something, and then at the public hearing...
I don't think you can zone change anybody's property without their permission.
No, this is part of the process. We recommended that, in regarding her request, that a larger portion of property be rezoned.
But there's
But it's not
still...
her property.
But it's not her property, so I'm saying the people involved ought to give something in writing that they have permission to do a zone change on their property.
Well, I would think as part of the public hearing, you would notify the surrounding landowners and all the parcels involved.
I think it should be done before a public hearing, that the people know, so whether they're in favor of it, so they can come to the public hearing.
Right, the petition should come from the property owners in question, I would think. I mean, I wouldn't want someone having a zone change request for my property without me knowing it until after the fact. I'd want to know before.
No, I would say as part of the whole notification process, all the landowners involved should be notified, and we would certainly take the step of doing that, if we move this thing forward.
I think it should be more than notified, but I think it should be involved. If they're not even involved, then how can we presume that they even want a zone change unless they come to us and say they want it?
I think they should be notified before the public hearing.
And then have them come forward with a petition saying they want to be part of it. That way we'll avoid all the public hearings. If they all don't want it to begin with, then it's never going to happen anyway. So let them decide first if they want to have a zone change, get a petition together, present it to us, and then we'll proceed from there. Otherwise, we got the cart before the horse, I think. And
Once we have a public hearing, we're going to make a decision. We'd like to have everything.
Well, I think they should be, I know as part of the Shalom Drive, we recommended a larger portion involving more parties than was originally requested. I mean, that went back and forth a couple times.
Yeah, but the people
Notified all the parties,
Yeah,
they
but the
came to
people
the
wanted
public
it.
hearing,
well, they came with a petition though first, Kevin. They had names on the petition.
That's I just like to say that's exactly what happened with Shalom Cabin. The people come back with a petition saying that they wanted their zone change. And I think that is the procedure, and that petition has to be on file with all of the names of the adjacent landowners saying that, yes, they are asking the board to request a zone change, just to protect the board. Maybe they could just circulate the petition and bring it in and just schedule a special meeting just to schedule a public hearing. Maybe you could do that.
Right, if they want to get one together in the next week or so, and we'll have a special meeting to accept it. we'll go from there.
But I think to protect the board and Penny, that there should be a petition on file that in case there's any question, then it could be attached. But I think that there has to be a petition submitted to the board.
Well, we have a petition on file.
But that's from the old place. You're involving more property owners now, right?
Right.
And you should have their name in writing requesting a public hearing. And that's the procedure according to the zoning book.
Okay. So where are we now? We're talking about the public hearing. Okay, so I'm not making a motion on that.
Right.
Okay.
But as Kevin stated, if he contacts or they circulate a petition, can they contact you just to schedule a special meeting?
Yeah, because we're going to be having our work session on the budget from now until, the end of the month and then into November.
Because it wouldn't
You
involve a
also
public...
got to notify Scribe and Minetto also.
Right. So it might be after the next town board meeting anyway, because of the time restraint we have. But I think that's where to start. Have her get a petition together and we'll go from there. Okay. But we do need to authorize a public hearing for Parish Oil on November 8th for the zoning board. And I'll make a motion to do that now.
I'll second it.
Any discussion from the board on this resolution? Questions or comments from the public? Colleen?
I have a question, Howard, Colleen Scott, Flood Drive. I thought that when someone issued you a stop work order, that's what it meant.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that they were supposed to stop.
Right.
Why is that contaminated soil continuing to be there? If they didn't, it may be a DEC approved process.
Mm-hmm.
The DEC also said they had to have permission from the town for them to do that. So if you issue a stop work order, why is that contaminated soil still there?
Because they can't move it.
You can't do anything.
It hasn't been treated.
When there's a stop work order, you can't touch anything. It wasn't in order to remove the soil, it was a stop work, period. So I don't understand why that can stay there, Howard. I don't understand.
So you're
it.
saying
They
we should
didn't have
request them to
permission.
remove it then?
They didn't have permission to bring that here in the first place. I think they should bring it back to where they got it from. I just wondered why. Where all of a sudden we're putting the thing on it and, moving sand. Apparently there was a pile of sand that's gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. So I'm just curious, because they didn't have permission. And maybe a DEC-approved process to remediate contaminated soil, but they did not have permission from the town of Volney to do it in the first place. So really, they got their way because it's sitting there and they're just going to cover it up. And, I'm just curious.
I'm not sure how much is there.
If the ZBA, when they make a decision, if they decide that that process is not allowed to take place on that site, then we will order them to remove the soil. Until the ZBA makes a decision, basically we've asked them to contain the site and not touch it after that.
That is part of why our attorney advised us that the public hearing should go ahead, because putting it before the ZBA is putting a stay on any action. And so the issue with the ZBA needs to be resolved so that the town can take other action.
That's right, no work can proceed until something's been done about it.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Okay, Barbara, poll the council, please.
Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Counselor Ridgway?
Aye.
Counselor Warner?
Aye.
Counselor Smart?
Aye.
Supervisor Rose?
Aye. Okay,
Bid number 120?
that was
Yeah, they'd be 120.
95-120. Does anyone have any new business tonight?
Yes, there was some question about exactly where the property was with the park down near Great Bear. And since we have just recently got a work permit from the Canal Authority, I thought it was a good time to explain exactly what things are. These are tax maps from the county. The pink line is Route 57, and the blue line coming down the side is Great Bear Road. That is the town line
Yeah, sure, I'm sorry.
which is the town line between Schuylkill and Volney. Okay, the green line right here is a combination up to here of what had been the end of the old Great Bear Road in Volney that hasn't been maintained that much. And it's a joint authority with the town and with the Canal Corporation. The Canal Corporation's property also continues on over, goes past our property. That's showing how it widens out on Wally Auser's property. It actually, there's a lot of canal land all along the shoreline of Volney because there are 6 miles of Volney that is on the canal, and there's a lot of Canal Corporation land on there. What we have been given is a work permit that extends from the edge of Volney at the Schuylkill line all the way over to the end of the property. The yellow part is the land that is ours, that is not subject to Canal Corporation control. So what we have is they're wonderful to deal with, and what they have done is, because they always say, oh, you got to have a plan for this, a plan for that, and usually when the government says plan, it means a lot of money. Well, these guys are wonderful to deal with. They said your plan can be clear brush, which is not that hard to come up with a plan, and maintain the road. So that gives us the right to go down in there with volunteers or to get on the list with the county for the work release people that they have. It's not the dangerous people that come out and do things like this clear brush. It's the guys that are serving weekends, okay? So instead of watching TV, they go and do some outside work somewhere. And then they could do some brush clearing and stuff like that. And there may be some citizens that might want to get involved also in this. And then also we would want to, you know, our highway department has already been down in there and done some mowing to make it easier because the Mount Pleasant Boy Scouts are going to be going down in there and doing some brush clearing. And there are some places that when Jesse and I were down in there with Bob Edict of the Canal Corporation, that he suggested that some preliminary improvements be made to the road so that there isn't any erosion. What do you call it, riprap or something you put in there?
Yeah.
It protects the road from being washed away. Nothing expensive, just it will protect the bank from being washed away. And the really great thing about this, because there's a lot of grants that you always hear, there's matching funds, okay? Well, the way the Canal Corporation looks at it, if we have the Boy Scouts go down in there, okay, and they do some work, if we keep track of how many Boy Scouts and how many hours they all work, we can value that at so much per hour, and that will be part of our matching funds for grants. If we have guys from OCJ come down and do work down there that will cost the town nothing, we can keep track of how many guys, how many hours they worked, and we can also value that at so much per hour, and that would also go towards any matching funds. The mowing that the town did also is a matching. So actually, the beauty of the way this is set up is that we can use volunteer help and time when our road crew can fit in a little extra work down in there because there's nothing else that's really pressing, and they could spend a day or two doing a little mowing or something, and that would go towards any matching parts. So any money we got from the state or foundations or anything else would be really cash in hand because we had already met our match on it. So it's a very nice program. Basically, you get to use their land for free. It gives, along with this work permit, is a maintenance contract that you have with them so that we can use their land at no charge as long as we continue to do things like clear brush once a year. And that way it will be available for townspeople for hiking and biking and fishing or having a picnic or something like that, and it won't cost anything to the town residents.
Okay, thank you. Any other new business from the board? Okay, we'll move on to petitions. Does anybody have a petition this evening? No petitions? Okay. I'm going to open the floor now for public comments. Anybody have any public comments this evening? Cindy?
Howard, I'd just like to, I forgot in my report, I'd like to thank Kevin for mentioning the rear entrance to the River Glen Plaza over there. I also had a call from, I know Kevin had talked to them extensively, and they called and asked if they needed any kind of permit to proceed with the rear entrance, and basically I recommended they talk to Mr. Kerfing as the highway superintendent, because I know he's concerned that they do it so it doesn't damage Pierce Drive in any way. Other than that, hopefully, as Kevin mentioned, they're planning on getting that entrance completed before winter, which I hope they do, because I've almost been hit twice by people coming out of the dirt there, out of the illegal entrance when I was on Pierce Drive, and I was a little less than happy that they didn't even bother to stop. They were using an illegal entrance, and they didn't even pay any attention to the traffic on the road. So maybe they'll get it up in some signs, and people will be a little more considerate. But it'll be good for everyone, I think, if they get that taken care of.
Okay, thank you. Merlin, you got a question?
Merlin Doty, I'd like to just clarify one statement that Cindy made. Maybe Marie can refresh my memory. In regards to where that dirt came from, you stated from Don Fisher's former garage at 481?
Yes, I did.
Didn't the representatives at the zoning board meeting sit here and say that that came out of a swiggle?
That's what I thought. They said
I'd like to get that straight, where that came from. One says Fulton, and I believe that they
Maybe
said
it was
it came out
both
of...
sides.
I think it was, what I understand was both sides.
No, they said this came out, I believe, out of a swiggle.
When I spoke to Dick Barzell with the DEC, what he said is their actual permit application with the DEC was for both sites. And also, he let us know that this company was involved with 34 other sites that need remediation in the state. And I said, well, have they included these sites? And he said, no. But I said, what, could the permit be amended? And he said, yes.
But he did say specifically at our meeting it was including Oswego and...
Right. Both Oswego and Fulton are in the current application.
That they had started drawing out of Fulton.
Right,
It was out of
stopped
Oswego, I
Right.
believe, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Barb?
I was just going to say, I agree that the permit was for both sites, but it was my understanding, being on the zoning board, that the dirt that's up there came from the city of Oswego. None of it came from 481 here in Fulton. That was my understanding. I will go back over my paper.
Okay.
But what we're saying is the two sites down there where they put up these new buildings, they don't have the room that they could do their little project right on?
Why couldn't you treat this on site instead of bringing it to a new site? And they said they didn't have enough area, which, I mean, I don't know how much area you need, but that was the reason for bringing it up here. They said they didn't have enough area there to do it. There's more room up here, they have more acreage or something.
Well, what they did is they dug it up, then they got their new building up, then they had no place to do the reclamation of the contaminated soil.
I don't know exactly how much land they own down there.
Not much more than what they own in Fulton.
I'll ask them next meeting.
Or next door to me. I mean, how much they own there?
Yeah, how much?
About 4.5 acres.
I think, yeah, I'm not sure.
Kevin?
Just a couple brief things. I just wanted to mention in reference to that park. I mentioned to Claudia last night. I'm glad to get in contact. We have a resident in the town who's very knowledgeable and experienced in making use of that, and that's Sandy Bonanno, who has been tied in with the Nature Conservancy and played a major role. In fact, she received an award a month ago on the work she did in Sandy Island with the sand dunes there, using volunteers and working with grants, and just I've done a lot of hiking with her, and she knows plants and trees and shrubs more than I'll ever know, and it might be I'd be glad to, or we might want to get in touch with her. Maybe she can be
If you already know her and could contact her, I think it would be wonderful to get her involved in
see if she can at least offer some assistance or advice. Secondly, just something, Bill, we might want to put on the agenda. I think this Doty Oil situation brings into mind the sunrise provisions again that we've talked before, where if a use is discontinued, how long should they be allowed to have the right to restore that use? Now, at Doty Oil location, I believe, has been closed for over a year. I believe maybe longer than that. When they were opened, I wasn't positive, but you're saying that's in a residential zone. Obviously, must have been a pre-existing use then, because it was used for storage of gasoline, storage of fuel oil, transporting of fuel oil, which resulted, there's no doubt, in contamination of the soil. So there's that question that that use is still there and possibly still available to them, because we have no provisions in our zoning laws where if a commercial use in a non-conforming zone is discontinued, that there's no time limit. So we might want to look at that again, maybe come in the spring when we start reviewing the zoning ordinance again, because I think that's an issue that has a role here. So.
Well, Merlin can correct me, but if I remember right, all tanks were above ground there.
Right.
In a blacktopped area underneath with a berm, right?
Yeah, they were. But when you're filling up,
Oh, yeah.
there's no way. Over years, there's just no way around.
You never, you're not talking
But they had the
about...
use there. What they do, I'm just saying, is they were able to store petroleum products, flammable products, products of that type in a residential zone, probably because they were there before zoning. They still have, technically, as our laws are structured, and I'm not the expert, but they still have that right. And possibly, maybe, after a period of time, they should, if they're going to do something, they should do something that tends to conform more with the zoning of the parcel. Just something to look at, because I know we have no provision at this time regarding that. Thank you.
Charlie?
I'm glad that you scheduled a public hearing for it. I tend to think that it's not the same use that it had before. The use before was to acquire oil wholesale and sell it retail and wholesale. And we're talking about bringing contaminated soil from other sources and treating it. I'm sure this will come out better at the public hearing, but I tend to think this would fit much more under our zoning regulation, which does not allow landfills that are not municipally owned. That's something that I think that the board really ought to look into.
Okay. Thank you. Any other public comment?
Just to let you know, Parish Energy did ask me what would be allowed on that site. If they, what type of operations could be placed on that site. And someone that works for them was interested in purchasing the site, and I said, well, as it stands right now, the only thing that I see that is allowed is things allowed in a residential zone, because it is a residential zone. But again, as Kevin says, we really don't have any sunshine laws, and it makes it a really tough issue to know where. I talked to our attorney about that. He said most cases of zoning, even when there is no sunshine law, after a period of 2 or 3 years, if you take it to court, they will still uphold that the use was discontinued and is no longer allowed. But I think that the town might seriously consider, putting that into their zoning if they. We have a lot of business. We have a lot of uses that are non-conforming uses, and it's a difficult issue, a very difficult issue.
Thank you. Colleen?
I think, Colleen Scott, Flood Road. I think the most important thing that bothers me about the whole thing is that that's right next door to the elementary school. That's right next door to where the smallest children play, because that's where all the little play equipment is. And the only thing that separates that from those kids is a fence and some little trees. So I think everyone should remember that, where this actually is located when we're worried about, whether someone still has the right or whatever. I think we should remember where that is actually located.
The other thing, one thing I can tell you, Colleen, is that their project did include placing a large fence around the area and planting a lot of large trees.
Cindy, are you defending them?
No,
I
just
have
to
the right to make a comment.
No, I'm just telling you that was part of the plan as well. Just because you're right, it is right next to a school, and that was part of their plan, which they will probably present at the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none. Future meetings, we have a special town board meeting scheduled for October 17th at 7 p.m. That's this coming Tuesday. It will not be a public meeting. It's a meeting where we have to discuss litigation over Niagara Mohawk's assessment and also the ongoing annexation dispute. Does this board want to set up a date for a work session for the budget, or do you want to
Any
talk
day.
about it Tuesday.
I won't be there Tuesday.
Oh, you won't be there Tuesday? I'd rather wait till Tuesday myself, because I don't know what I'm gonna be doing a week from now, and if I said it tonight, it could conflict, and then I may have to change it.
Well, we can always discuss it Tuesday, but I'd rather we, if possible, we did it
Okay.
when everybody was
If you could give
there.
us a list of when you're available, Jess, that would be helpful Tuesday night. when we
Any
start.
day.
Any day. Oh.
Any-
Any day's fine with me, but I don't know about the rest of the board. Okay, so you're working evenings from now until when?
Near the end of December.
Okay, so we need to do a daytime or a weekend? You available Saturdays at all?
So I said, any day.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, well, we'll talk about that Tuesday then.
Okay.
The bill signing and agenda preparation, do you want to do that the day before election or the day after?
I'd rather do it the day after.
Okay, day after election, November 8th. We'll have a busy night here in this town hall. And then our next regularly scheduled town board meeting is November 9th.
Public hearing on the budget.
And yes, there'll be a public hearing on the budget and a regularly scheduled meeting November 9th. Okay. Jim?
Move to adjourn.
Barb? Hold the council, Barb? Jim, Bill, seconded.
Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Counselor Ridgway?
Aye.
Counselor Smart?
Aye.
Counselor Warner?
Aye.
Supervisor Rose?
Aye.